Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Reverend Joan Javier Duval, the minister here at the Unitarian Church of Montpelier, and I welcome each of you with warmth and compassion as we gather to remember and to honor the life of Marsha Johnson Bancroft. As we begin our service, I want to just remind you to please silence your cell phones and any other devices you might have with you. This afternoon, we come together, family and friends, neighbors, and fellow travelers of the Spirit, to mark the loss of someone deeply cherished. We come to grieve, yes, but also to celebrate a life lived with courage and heart, with conviction and kindness. Marsha was many things to many people: a mother and sister, grandmother, a steadfast advocate, a thoughtful companion on early morning runs, a friend with a generous spirit, and a fellow seeker on the path of justice and truth. Each of us carries our own memories of Marsha, whether drawn from decades of shared life or brief but meaningful connections. It is a testament to who she was and how she moved through the world with purpose and grace that we are gathered here with stories to tell, with tears and laughter, with sorrow, and with deep gratitude. We especially hold in our hearts Marsha's beloved family, those here in the sanctuary and those who could not be with us today but are joining on the live stream. Your grief is shared by this wider circle of community that surrounds you now in love. In this time together, we turn toward the mystery of life and death, the mystery that brings sorrow and reflection, yet also stirs within us a deeper reverence for the time we are given. Grief can feel heavy and isolating, but we do not carry it alone. Together in this space of remembrance, we share the weight and we also share the light. And we remember Marsha not only for what she did, but for who she was and how she kept growing throughout her life. A woman who made Vermont her home for many, many years, who fought for dignity and rights for those too often overlooked, who embraced her full identity later in life with courage, and who welcomed others with an open heart. We honor her today in all her complexity and beauty, in her strengths and her struggles, in the ways she loved and was loved. Her spirit continues in the stories that we tell, in the values she embodied, and in the ripples of change and kindness she set in motion. Let us begin this service of memory and celebration, a service of words, music, silence, and reflection, by kindling the flame that symbolizes the Unitarian Universalist tradition and our shared hope. We light this chalice in remembrance of Marsha Bancroft. May its flame remind us of the light she brought into the world and the love that endures in our hearts and in the lives that she touched. And we welcome Marsha's grandson, Brady, to share a reading with us.
Hello, I'll be reading In Blackwater Woods by Mary Oliver. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds, and every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this, the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go.
The heart of this service is sharing our memories and our stories of Marsha. And I will begin, and then we will hear from two of Marsha's children, Betsy and Co., and then grandchild Dale. Marsha's life was defined by compassion, courage, and a deep commitment to justice and community. Marsha was a beloved member of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier for 7 years and the First Universalist Church of Barrie for the past year, and she was also quite involved with the UU congregation in Washington, Vermont. Though her path eventually led her to center her life closer to Orange, where she lived with her daughter Betsy in her final years, she never stopped living her values or inspiring those around her. Marsha, as many of you know, was a strong advocate for the disability community. She worked tirelessly to ensure that people of all abilities were treated with dignity, respect, and fairness. Whether through policy work, personal relationships, or simple acts of kindness, she brought both her voice and her heart to the table. Her advocacy was rooted not in ideology alone, but in genuine empathy, seeing the person before the label, and believing that each one of us deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. Marsha also remained active as an athlete well into her later years. Her love for movement and the outdoors was more than a personal passion. It was another way that she engaged with her community. I'm sure many of you are here because of some of those activities. She was a familiar face in the Central Vermont running world, offering her encouragement and energy at countless events. I still remember the surprise and the joy of almost literally running into her unexpectedly during the Leaf Peepers 5K a few years back. I wasn't expecting to see a church member on the course, but there she was, steady and focused, guiding the runners and cheering us on with her signature warmth. That moment said so much about Marsha. She showed up, she helped, and she always found ways to connect. Marsha's spiritual life was both deeply personal and, at least in one instance, courageously public. One year here at the church, when she was a member, she won a raffle that allowed her to choose the topic of the minister's sermon. And she asked me to speak about forgiveness, a request that came from a profound place of personal experience. Many years earlier, Marsha's mother had been murdered, a devastating act of violence by a young Black man whose life had been marked by hardship and systemic injustice. And where many might understandably have turned toward anger or bitterness, Marsha turned toward understanding. She grieved, but she also opened her heart to the deeper truths of the world that had shaped this man's desperation. She recognized the poverty, the racism, the lack of opportunity that can break a soul long before a crime is committed. And she chose not only to forgive, but to hold space for healing. And she wanted this message shared. This, to me, is Marsha's legacy. She met life's pain with tenderness. She met injustice with resolve. She met strangers as potential friends and adversaries as human beings deserving of compassion. Her life was a testament to what it means to live with open eyes and an open heart. She worked for inclusion not just as an ideal, but as a practice. She believed in a world where everyone belongs, and she lived as if that world were already here. We will miss Marsha's presence among us, her fierce intelligence, her gentle voice, her laughter, her quiet strength. But we carry her spirit forward whenever we choose understanding over judgment, welcome over exclusion, and action over indifference. Marsha Bancroft made this world more loving and more just. May we honor her by doing the same. And now I'd like to invite Betsy Bancroft to come and share her reflection.
With a big wad of tissues, it's guaranteed I'm going to cry. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Reverend Joan. That was so beautiful. And thank all of you for joining us this afternoon on a Friday. In preparing this little speech, I went back through the cards that people sent, and also some of the remembrances that the people she worked at Disability Rights Vermont had written in her retirement journal. And so I figured I would start with some of the words that that resonated for me, especially wise. Oh, I will really miss Mom's wisdom. Patience. She was always wanting to help everybody. I think every third sentence from her mouth was, how can I help? Caring, compassionate, supportive, and inspirational. She was a wonderful mentor and teacher to many people, especially, from the time she was teaching horseback riding when I was a little kid to her work at Disability Rights Vermont and so forth. And also as an athlete, she was really inspirational to other people who ran with her and so forth. I've also had some really lovely conversations with friends and people who, one woman in particular who called and said, I used to run with your mom in New Jersey. And she was really, really special to me, really inspirational particularly. She was super dedicated to be a good and kind person in this world. She was always kind. As Reverend Jones said, she always met everyone with kindness. And especially another thing that touched me is that she was never judgmental. She always met everybody and recognized who they were. And particularly, we used to have conversations about everybody gets to be who they are. Like that was like one of Mom's most fundamental beliefs, is everybody gets to be who they are. And I think that's one of the reasons that she has so many friends and so many people loved her, because she really saw all of us, she really accepted all of us, she really did love all of us. She was a role model of determination and grace. There's a bunch more friends. Mom was still in touch with friends she had since grammar school and college and the first job that she had teaching riding, and they're all on the live stream. Mom really did celebrate the gift of life and lived every day with all those good things of love and compassion and kindness. And I want to thank all of you for being such good friends to Mom and for enriching her life so much. She really did feel loved and part of many circles within the community. And she really appreciated that, and I really appreciate that. So like I said, thank you all for being such good friends. And we will miss her. I'll miss her a lot. No, we all will. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marsha Sunco. Want to say on the live stream, special I love you and miss you, Kathy, my other sister. Wishes she could be here as well. But she is watching and she's with us, as is my daughter, Missy. and many friends. On the surface, Marsha was such a sweet, quiet, and humble person. And I imagine that unless you participated with her in one or more of the athletic pursuits that she did, you might never have guessed what a tough and tenacious competitor she was. In looking back at her life, I wanted to share a bit about how Mom developed into a champion athlete. She'd been involved in sports during her childhood and through college. She wasn't, a big star or a standout, but she did love riding horses, and after she and our dad Monk got married, she taught horseback riding lessons for several years. But when she decided to change to a desk job, she realized she should get some exercise and took up running. Running then helped her recognize that, smoking wasn't really good for her. So she quit cigarettes so she could continue to be a better runner. Running became racing. Fun runs turned into 5Ks and 10Ks, which then evolved into half marathons and full marathons. But after running several marathons, Mom was a bit bored with just running, and she took up triathlons. She was not a great swimmer, so that was a big stretch for her, but she learned and did her best, and she eventually won her age group in 1993 in the U.S. Championships, which then led her to competing in the World Championships in England that year. So when I say champion, I'm not kidding. But I called her a tenacious competitor, but I want to clarify that she didn't look at competing as her against others. Instead, Mom's focus was on competing with herself, pushing herself to improve on past accomplishments rather than just beating others. In fact, she so enjoyed the camaraderie and shared success with her fellow competitors. That was just as important as her own results. After moving to Vermont, she took her toughness and applied it in her professional and volunteer work, as Rev. Joan was sharing. She put her heart and soul into helping others and fighting the injustice that she saw in the world around her. She wasn't the kind of person to tell us that we had to do all the things that she did, but she might have hoped to challenge us all to do our best, just like a running partner in the marathon of life. She would want us to accept others as they are, forgive others even when we felt deeply hurt by them, offer kindness to those in need of a helping hand, and truly care about all our fellow humans. And when we do these things, I know that Mom is living on in all of us. Even through her last days, Marsha remained strong, facing her illness with grace and peaceful acceptance. She lived a full life of showing kindness, acceptance, and loving support to others. Please think of my mom when you take a walk in nature, pet a dog, or simply share kindness with another person. My sisters Betsy, Kathy, and I hope you'll join us in continuing to spread her legacy. And thank you for coming today.
Hi all, thanks for being here. My name's Dale, I'm a grandchild, next generation down. Together, we sit on the couch next to the wood stove, walk down the trail, paddle across the reservoir, swapping stories, sharing our love. While there's no one right way of living, it is in this way that we act as guideposts for one another, helping each other grow. To me, Marsha was more of a guiding light. One of the first lessons I learned from Marsha was to live my truth. No one can tell you how to exist or how to love. I'm grateful to have had an elder to look up to who stood boldly for herself.
But it was never just for herself. Marsha deeply understood the intersectionality of our lives. She worked tirelessly to ensure her community had the resources they needed, never for accolades, but from a place of solidarity. There's a phrase that hangs on my kitchen wall. It comes from an Aboriginal rights group, but reminds me often of this lesson from Marsha. If you've come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. So please, live your truth. Share your love with those around you. I know it would make my grandmother smile.
Thank you, Dale and Co and Betsy. This is now the time in our service for you to share stories and memories of Marsha. It is through these stories and these reminders of how Marsha has been a part of our lives that she lives on, and that we will remember all that was good and true and inspiring in her life. By speaking of those qualities that we treasure in Marsha, those qualities endure and grow in us. So you are invited, if you wish, to share a story or a memory of Marsha, if you are so moved. I invite you to please come up to the pulpit and use the microphone so that we can all hear you in this room and also on the live stream, and you can tell us who you are before sharing your story. And if there is any silence or pause between speakers, we can offer gratitude in that time for all that Marsha offered to us through her life. So please, you are invited to come forward if you wish.
My name is Jameson Kennedy. In 1955, I fell in love with a girl named Helen. And Helen had this cute little tiny sister, and her name was Marsha. And she had little pouchy cheeks, so I named her Chipmunk. Well, Chipmunk made the decision to marry a young man from Dartmouth. And they got married, and I moved to Colorado, and the Chipmunk, and her husband's name was, his name was a funny name. His name was Monk. So Monk and Marsha lived together in New Jersey, and I too got hit with the running bug. So in 1985, after training in Colorado, I went to run the New York Marathon with Marsha. Well, we started out pretty even, but about halfway through, I couldn't see her anymore. She was way ahead of me. But like Marsha is, she waited for me at Central Park, and I was about ready to quit. We only had 4 more miles to go, and I felt Marsha's hand on my back, and she says, "Uncle Jimmy, you're gonna make it." So she pushed on my back, and I made it. And that tells you a lot about Marsha. She helped you, and she loves you. She's a great gal. We're gonna miss her.
My story is similar to yours in the sense that Marsha kept me going. at a time when I didn't know if I could. Monk and Marsha were friends of mine for many years in the Montpelier Ski Club. 25 years ago, I lost my first wife to breast cancer after 35 years of marriage. And like you in the marathon, I didn't know if I could keep going. The only way, we lived in New Jersey, the only way I could keep going, the only way I could never sleep at night. The only way I could keep going was I would drive to Vermont every weekend. Marsha and Monk were both there. Marsha would lead me across the hills on snowshoes to the point I would get tired enough that I could sleep again. And Marsha kind of bore me along until the sun rose again. I met Yasmina, to whom I've now been married for 25 years. And Marsha, in addition to supporting me, Yasmina is the leader of the National Head Start Association. Marsha was always the first one to affirm whatever Yasmina was doing for hundreds of thousands of poor kids. We'll miss her when we can say.
I'm going to read a short poem. My name is Dot, and I lived and ran with Marsha, and so did my dog Sophie, and she took care of us. I have great memories, especially being in the woods with her. So a few weeks ago, Betsy took myself and Virginia Humphreys and Lynn Newcomb, who couldn't be here today, into the woods to visit Marsha, where she lies in this beautiful spot in the forest. And we took some of Sophie with us. And Lynn read this amazing poem, which I want to repeat here, called Their Slow Way. Let these woods have their slow way with you, patient pines that hold their green through all the frozen seasons, lichen-covered rocks that live indifferent to time's passage. These will teach you how to bring your life to ground. The fractal chaos of the forest floor, its white anemones, spiked grasses and dead leaves, the fallen trunks and branches splayed out like pickup sticks. These will teach you how to live freely with abandon and feed the roots of new growth when your time has come. I love you, Betsy.
Good afternoon. My name's Wes Delzell. I'm a member of the Montclair Ski Club, and that's where I got to know Marsha. And we did a lot of skiing and met the whole family. But I'm not talking, we had fun, but I'm going to talk about another sport that a lot of you probably don't remember. She was a big sea kayaker, and she introduced me to that sport. I remember we were at gathering at, I think it was Lake Champlain, and she had bought a kayak, and she let me try it, and I ended up buying getting a kayak. My wife actually bought it for me. Anyway, it evolved into us doing a lot of trips together. We started out on lakes and rivers in New Jersey, where we all lived at the time, but she got me into a lot of other trips, and we ended up doing a trip where we drove to Nova Scotia and met up with about 20 other sea kayakers and kayaked out to an island off of Nova Scotia. Spent the weekend camping and kayaking out there, and then kayaking back to the mainland. It was a 2-day trip up to Nova Scotia. We drove in my old Land Cruiser and had 3 kayaks tied to the top of the car. Probably too many for the rack that was on there, but we did it anyway. And we got there, and we had a great time, and that was one of the trips. The other trip we did that I remember, and we have a lot of remembrances of just spending hours on the water. We did a trip on the Hudson River from Poughkeepsie, New York, down to the George Washington Bridge. And we spent 2 or 3 nights camping. We were camping across from West Point, and it was just a great trip. And I remember going under what was then called the Tappan Zee Bridge. And it's just amazing to see how big a river that is. And those are some of the memories that I had with her. And we just got along so well. She was the organizer, by the way. I was not the organizer, I was the participant. But we had great fun together, we camped. It was really a great time, and that's what I remember. And I kind of regret she moved up to Vermont, and that kind of ended. We did see her at times, but it wasn't the same as when we were both in Jersey and had those great trips. So those are the great times that I'll remember with Marsha.
Good afternoon. I clearly didn't pick my seat very well because I made everyone get up around me. I'm Lindsay Owen. I'm the Executive Director at Disability Rights Vermont. We had the privilege and the pleasure of having Marsha in our lives for over 2 decades, 18 years as our intake specialist, and then a brief break before she decided to rejoin us as a board member. I took some notes because I was not planning on speaking, and then Marsha inspired me to say a few words. I have many memories of Marsha, but I think the one that stands out the most was going to support her at a triathlon. I was younger then, and Marsha was a lot older than me. And there she was around Lake Elmore. It was dreary, it was cold, it was rainy, and she was so upbeat and ready to just put everything she had into that race, and it just blew my mind. And she did that in her work, but seeing her in that triathlon, swimming was the first obstacle she had to get through, and it was inspiring to watch. And that's true of everything that she did. Sorry, it's like I'm sleep deprived, or I'm just really sad and taking this all in at the moment, so I'm a little bit shaky. So to this day, she keeps me going and motivates me with her incredible nature. She was an enormous force, and yet one of the most gentle people I have ever known. She truly inspires me to do better and be kinder and give more grace to those around me. And DRVT will forever miss her.
I'm not a very good speaker in front of a lot of people, but I owe this to Marsha. Many years ago, I suffered a traumatic brain injury, and I went to a support group that she led. I was a computer programmer, and I had many resources, but most of the people in the support group had none. They were, they had no, most of them didn't even have health insurance. And they didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do emotionally, but they didn't know what to do at all. And if it wasn't for Marsha, I don't know what would have happened to most of those people. And then she eventually somehow convinced me to run the support group because she was so busy with so much of her life. She was a beautiful person. The most ironic thing is that her daughter, Betsy, who I didn't know was her daughter, also helped me right after my brain injury. Betsy reached out to me and I had lost my license for a while because it affected my vision. And she gave me rides to herbal medicine conferences, and yeah, but I mostly just wanted to read something that I read a long time ago that just reminds me of her. Sorry. It's by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep, loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. That's definitely your mom. Thank you.
As folks continue to make their way up, I also meant to let everyone know that we do have a wireless mic that I can come and bring you if it is not convenient for you to come up to the pulpit. So we do have this microphone, and if anyone wanted to come and grab it for anyone, you're welcome to do that too.
My name's Emily, and I'm Betsy and Marsha's neighbor. And I felt compelled to come up here today because I feel like I cheated destiny twice. Once is that my mother's name is Marsha, M-A-R-S-H-A, and 5 years ago I was blessed to gain a second mom named Marsha. And secondly, to see all of you here is so deeply moving because the other way I cheated destiny is that I got to know Marsha as my next door neighbor and be so intimately connected, to be invited into her home, and every time I stopped by to drop off milk or the mail, to be asked to sit down and have a cup of tea or have a glass of wine out of the box. And never, ever did Marsha not have a moment to invite me in and invite me to pause and connect and be human. And I knew how many friends she had, but it's just so deeply moving to see all of you here celebrating her today. Some of you know that Marsha was advocating for the local wildlife in our town of Orange the night of the 2023 flood that took out our road. And myself and my partner and Marsha were down at the town hall and got a call from Betsy that we better come home because there was flood damage on the road. Little did we know that half of our road was gone. And at the crest of dusk, Marsha and my partner and I were literally climbing up the side of the mountain because our road had washed totally away. My partner and I holding each of Marsha's hands, desperately afraid that she was going to fall or break an ankle or not get all the way up the mountain in the dark. And here was Marsha kind of dragging us along. There was no way she was not getting home that night. I think we'll later see this beautiful image of Marsha that I got to stare at as I was sitting bedside with her in her final days. This photo of her from 40-some years ago as she was running the New York Marathon. And what touched me so much of the photo was that here she was in the center of the marathon, surrounded by all these men. And of the
30 or 40 runners that were pictured in this image, Marsha here in the middle was floating like a butterfly, just so gracefully. And it was so poignant for me to think about the metamorphosis that I was so deeply blessed to witness as she, in her final days, with such grace and such peace, blessed Betsy and her family and her nurses and her friends that it surrounded with, having worked in hospice for 20 years, the most beautiful, peaceful passing I had ever witnessed. And so I just wanted to share a poem that I read at her burial in the beautiful forest that she loved so much by Fran Hall, kind of echoing what Betsy and Cole and Brady and Dale all shared about thinking about Marsha as we spend time in nature and as we pet a dog and as we think about the gratitude and generosity and grace that she shared with all of us. Under a soft blanket of fallen leaves, safe in the hush of the whispering trees, I have come home. My time here on earth is now done. All the noise and the clamor, the joy and the pain, the powerful life force that drove me onwards has slipped away into the quiet of eternity, and I am at peace. From now on, I will dance through your memories, threading thoughts of love through your heart. The pain of loss will gradually ease, and the sadness will lift. The days will be lighter, and the nights not so long, for I am still here. When you walk through this place, you will feel me in the gentle touch of the breeze on your face, in the sunlight dappling the forest floor. In the murmur of the branches high above you, I am all around. I have returned to the place from whence I came, to the elements that created me. The earth that gave me the life I so loved has now welcomed me back to her, to be at one with all her beauty. Here, under my blanket of fallen leaves, I have found my resting place. I have come home. I love you, Marsha.
Hi, my name is Vicki Vians. I knew Marsha through church, and I just wanted to represent that she was a member of our Seasoned Souls small group ministry group that met every other week. And often these things will only go for like 6 weeks or something. And we decided to continue, and I'm sure it was more than 3 years. I had to leave them because of my own health issues. And it was just wonderful to have Marsha in the group. She was so open and definitely a very strong person. I am most sad today because I always wanted to go out with Marsha, do kayaking or something. And with the distance and my health problems and such, that never worked out. And, you know, she was so young at heart that I had no idea she was 14 years older than me. I was the youngest member in the group, but I really had no idea until I read today. So, yes, it is a loss, but it's also a great joy to have known her. Thank you.
Hello? Oh. She said it was on, and she wasn't kidding. I'm Ed Paquin, and I had the honor to work with Marsha for something close to 17 years at Disability Rights Vermont. And, you know, the privilege to see late on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday evenings when she would, I'd be working late at my desk, and she would be getting ready for her brain injury group. She gave an awful lot to that group, and I could see it when I would go in and just give my hellos to the people there, and see I wouldn't quite call it a look of adulation, but a real look of deep respect that they had for Marsha and the way that she helped them. She also was our, quote, intake specialist. She was our first contact with people, and her maturity, and I don't mean age, but her wisdom and her patience for many years brought people into that organization and gave them hope. Often with people who were, I guess, no exaggeration, just plain at war with the world and their circumstances. And I just want to mention one gift that Marsha gave to me one time. And it happened to be the first time I met her. I came into the office not as an employee, but as a job seeker and extremely nervous. And I went in and I could see there was a chair. I could see that the board of directors was in their conference room ready to interview, and they were in the process with somebody else. And I sat down by the door and figured, okay, here I am. I'm just going to look around and bite my nails until it's my turn. And out from an office came this dear woman who invited me into her office with a huge smile. We proceeded to spend the next few minutes gabbing, and I almost forgot what I was there for. And that was the kind of person Marsha was. She gave, she was welcoming, she was an absolute sweetheart. And also, as having been her boss for 17 years, an incredibly hard worker. Thanks.
I'm here with 5 other women, and I haven't yet heard this association mentioned. Marsha was a member of PEO, which is a philanthropic educational organization. We raise funds for women for higher education, and you came and spoke to us one night, I believe. Yes. So, it's also a sisterhood. Marsha was a wonderful sister to every one of us in our chapter, always interesting, everything that everyone has said. And she especially, we clicked around animals and nature. She clicked with everybody around something, and she was such a wonderful and cherished member. In our organization, it's international, Canada and United States. We have groups of chapters, and our chapter is G. Montpelier. And when a sister dies, she goes to chapter eternal.
Hi. I might have a little trouble getting through this, so bear with me. I'm Brad Noble. I grew up with Marsha as a surrogate aunt to me. Also in the Montclair Ski Club. There's a bunch of degenerate ski bums in this room. It's great to see you all. One of the things I remember about Marsha was that she was a beautiful, sweet, positive person, as everybody's mentioned, but she was also, as has been alluded to, she was an animal. I remember she was famous in the winter for waking up early and going for 5-mile runs before skiing, like in the dark, And everybody else, struggled to just get up to get on the hill at a respectable time. And by the time other people were up, she'd already run 5 miles and taken a few runs. And that was always a strain. I mean, I remember growing up and thinking, that is strange. Later on, when I was a little older, still a teenager, one famous experience in my family with Marsha was she ran, and it was my first exposure to the Waterbury Half Marathon. And I think I was a young teenager, late 80s. I'm dating myself. But it snowed that day, and she ran the whole half marathon in the snow. And as others have mentioned, she was, a beautiful person, very thin person also, and maybe the thinnest person I've ever known in my life. But that thinness kind of belied this incredible character, and she ran the whole thing 13 miles in the snow. And at the end of the race, she got wrapped up in tinfoil blankets because she was hypothermic. And I was there, my parents were there, we were there to pick her up and drive her home. And my recollection is that we took her to the hospital because she was hypothermic. And the whole time, she had a smile on her face the whole time. She was staring death in the face, with hypothermia after a 13-mile run in the snow, and she never stopped smiling. And I remember being in the back seat and seeing my parents when we dropped her off, and my parents looked at each other and they're like, why would anyone subject themselves to that torture? And I was young, and I feel so fortunate to have that example. I identify with that. And I thank you, Marsha, for the example.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Dowsher, and I just wanted to share a story. It was just a little over a year ago. Marsha, and who, incidentally, for mostly the first 10 years that I knew her, I was just called her Betsy's mom, and finally remembered her name. But last year, my wife and I went with her to the LGBTQ Pride Festival in downtown Barrie, at the gazebo there. Well, you would have thought that we were there with the mayor. How many people were lining up to talk to her? 2 and 3 people deep at almost the whole time we were there, no matter what vending table we went to around. And it was there that, wow, I see a different part of somebody that you know in a different part of life. And then you hear these stories that we come here today. And I guess the one thing that I come away with is how Marsha was so weaving into the fabric of the community, and it's multiple communities here in Vermont. And then to have this wonderful life that you hear about. And then actually, to me, I think it was a most gracious ending, that the love and care that Betsy had provided for her in her remaining days, and she will be well missed, and she was well loved while she was here for sure.
Everyone, my name is Sky, and I'm the owner of Alpenglow Fitness, where Marsha was a star spinner. She was, you'd see her on her bike, and they used to be lined up in a row, and somebody who didn't know Marsha would, get on next to her, and I just kind of see them look over, and we'd get into class, and Marsha's just going for it, and you'd see the person next to her just like really light up. She was an inspiration to all of us instructors when we would see her name signed up for our class, It just brought us so much joy, and we would, sort of say to each other, I got to have Marsha in my class. So she just brought not just this love for physical fitness that was inspiring to all of us, but what she brought in terms of her light, and I think that's what we've all talked about today. She was just such an integral part of our community, and we're really going to miss her.
I'll be quick, I promise. My name's Emily, and I had the pleasure of growing up just up the road from Marsha in Worcester. And I'll say I didn't know her well, but I was always met with a lovely smile. I had the privilege of taking the first fall off my horse just down the road from her house. And she was very pleased to hear that I had been fine, and even more pleased to hear that it had happened in front of her house. And then the second best memory I have with Marsha was surrounding mental health and her advocacy. When I turned 18, I went to work at the state psych hospital and found myself in a very interesting world. And Marsha and I believe were at a party over a flower and started a conversation, and I learned that she was an advocate, and it shocked me because at the time I had known advocates to be very pesky people and that they made it hard to do our jobs, and we sat and had a very long conversation, and I realized just by talking that I knew nothing and that I was very young and that she had so many questions and she wanted to know so many things, and there were so many things that she didn't know about how the hospital worked and how we did things and why we did things. And it was an incredibly eye-opening experience, and it changed the way that I did my job for the next 5 years. And I think it was just a lovely reminder that amazing things happen when we give space for one another in a positive way and just talk to each other. And I think a great way to honor her memory, especially in the current climate, is to remember to enter into conversations with love and respect and open ears and eyes, because you never know what you'll learn or how little you realize you really know. Thank you.
My name is Lynn, and I worked with Marsha at Disability Rights Vermont for many years. But today, well, first thing I'm going to say, aren't we lucky to have had Marsha as a friend, really? And what I really want to speak to today, and we've heard a little bit of it, is her compassion for animals. And she was just, they were just as deep in her heart. All beings, all living beings meant so much to Marsha. And that's, why she was such a good friend to everyone. But one of the things that everyone might not know about Marsha is she had a thing for turtles. And I happen to have a couple of rescued turtles. They're 40 and 45 years old. I've had them for over 25 years. And those turtles have been part of the glue of Marsha's and my friendship over the years. In fact, for over a decade, I've told her that those turtles are in my will to her. So I have a little complication in my life now. It was, of course, partly, I'm only going to say partly in jest, but I never really thought about why she loved these turtles. She would send me, through Facebook Messenger, turtles on skateboards and turtles with sweaters on and turtle this and turtle that. And anytime we had a conversation, there was never a conversation without some little piece of turtle. So Michelle, ma belle, and little sister have been promised a fresh shrimp dinner in honor of Marsha tonight. And again, not again, but I just want to say I never really thought about why were turtles so important to Marsha? And I'm sitting in the back there thinking, oh, now I get it. She just carried her world and our world on her back so easily. What a special person.
It's hard for me not to start off with a hearty good morning, but I'll start off with a good evening instead. Marsha Bancroft was a special person, as you all know. I first met her when she came to visit our church, the Barry UU Church, one Sunday morning. She was bright and cheery and immediately lit up the entire sanctuary. She joined us after the service for our usual enlivened conversation downstairs. Later, she told me she loved the service and the people she had met. Several Sundays later, she said that she wanted to join the church. She was my first new member and my ministry. So for that, she will always hold a special place in my heart. Over the next few months, she brought that same joy and radiance to every service she attended, whether live or online. She often shared words of wisdom at our coffee hour, and she helped everyone who attended feel welcome. She talked often of her family and how she loved them all. I know she was not a difficult person to love. We all certainly loved her. I did not know her for a long time, but like a beautiful flower, she came into our lives for a brief time and blossomed before us. Then she faded, but she left us with wonderful memories, and we feel blessed to have known her. I will miss her, and I know the people of the Barry Church will all miss her as well. Let us now share a moment of prayer, contemplation, and meditation. O source of all being, whom we know by many names, we gather with you in the face of the mysteries of life and death. We are here to mourn the passing of Marsha. Let us each in our own way honor Marsha's life and commemorate her death. We recognize that there are many emotions and thoughts that can accompany a death, including sadness, loneliness, emptiness, anger, hurt, confusion, release, and peace. There are questions that may remain unanswered and words left unspoken, but each of these thoughts and emotions are sacred and part of the gifts of love and the fullness of memory we have for Marsha. We offer prayers, thoughts of compassion, and a silent space in our hearts for those who mourn Marsha's death so deeply. We ask that the members of her family find comfort and solace through the peace that surpasses all understanding. O sacred presence, bless Marsha's family and friends. Give them peace and comfort in the days to come, and bless those who have gathered here as well as those who have been touched by the life of Marsha. May it be so. Please rise as you are willing or able to sing our hymn number 1064, which is in the teal hymnal 1064, the Blue Boat Home.
As we bring this service of remembrance and celebration to a close, we hold in our hearts the life and spirit of Marsha Bancroft, a life marked by courage, kindness, curiosity, and unfailing care. Let us go from this place carrying with us the gifts that Marsha shared. In her memory, may we live with greater attentiveness to beauty, with deeper empathy for one another, and with renewed commitment to living authentically and lovingly, just as she did. May the gratitude we feel today open our hearts more fully to one another, to this fragile yet beautiful world, and to the mystery that binds us together in life and in love. We now extinguish the flame of our chalice, but we carry its warmth with us, a symbol of the enduring light of Marsha's spirit and the hope that lives on in each of us. At the close of our service, after Marsha's family has had a moment to leave the sanctuary, you are warmly invited to join them downstairs for a time of connection and continued remembrance. And I want to offer thanks to Aaron Marcus, friend of Marsha, for playing music today.